All right, so today we're going to talk about multiplying fractions. I want you to see this first example. The main thing to remember is when we multiply fractions, we don't have to find an LCM. We just multiply straight across. So the first example is an easy one. 7 times 1 is 7, and 8 times 3 is 24. And here's your answer. And so the 7/24, this is in simplest form. We do not need to change this answer. All right, look at this next example. You have a whole number times a mixed number. So we're going to have to rewrite this in order to multiply this. You can't just multiply straight across on this situation. So we're going to make a fraction out of the whole number by putting a 1 underneath the 5, because 5 divided by 1 still means 5. So we didn't change the value, we just made it into a fraction. And we're going to bring down a multiplication symbol. And then for a mixed number, the key thing to remember is to change it to an improper fraction. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 2 is 10, and that's your numerator, and your denominator stays the same. Now, just like this top example, when you get it in this form, a fraction times a fraction, multiply straight across, and you're good. So 50/4. Now, if this were a test, you might see 50/4 as an answer choice. However, you might not. And if you do not see it as an answer choice, you'll have to look for something that means the same thing, which would be equivalent. So, because you know that 50/4, this is a division problem, you can say, well, how many times will 50, or how many times will 4 fit into 50? And you know your top number always goes inside the house. So 4 goes into 50, it will be 12 times. And 12 times 4 is 48. And subtract, and you get 2 left over. So your numerator is 2 and your denominator is 4. So this means 50/4 means 12 with 2/4 left over. Now, this also could be simplified because 2/4 means 1/2. So 12 and 1/2 could also be an answer choice. All right, so let's look at an example where you have two mixed numbers. All right, so let's take a look at this example. We have two mixed numbers and we want to multiply. Remember, do not multiply straight across, change them to improper first. So 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5, the denominator is 4. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5, and the denominator stays the same. Now you can multiply straight across. 5 times 5 is 25. 4 times 2 is 8. Now again, this situation, 25/8 could very well be an answer choice on a test. But if it's not there, you have to know, I've got to change this to another form. What does this mean, 25/8? It means 25 divided by 8. So how many times will 8 fit into 25? 8 will fit into 25 3 times, because 3 times 8 is 24. And there's 1 left over, and the denominator stays the same. All right, so this is that old skill of changing an improper fraction back to a mixed number. So either one of these, they're equivalent, but if this one's not here, look for this choice, all right? Let's try another one that's a little bit harder. All right, so this next example, I told you it's a little bit harder, so the numbers are going to get a little larger. We're going to, again, change it back to improper. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7 thirds, and 3 times 4 is 12, plus 3 is 15/4. So when you multiply, you can just multiply straight across. Now you're going to know what 3 times 4 is, right? But you may have to come over to the side and say, okay, well, I don't know my 15, so let me see what 15 times 7 is. All right, and that is 7, 8, 9, 10, 105 over 12. So if I'm going to, if this is a test situation and I want to see, is this on the ABCD answer? If it's not there, we're going to change this to something that means the same thing, only a different form. All right, so 105, we want to divide that by 12 and see how many times it will fit in there. Well, how many times will 12, if you know your 12s, then you know that 8 times 12, that's 16, is 96. And if I go 9 times, that's 108, and that goes over, so we can't go 9 times. So when you subtract and do your regrouping, you're going to get 9 left over. And so 9 is your numerator and 12 is your denominator. 8 and 9/12, which we can simplify. Divide by 3, and let me just erase this, and divide by 3 to get 3/4. So your final answer is 8 3/4. But now here's where you could save yourself some time if you knew how to simplify back at this stage, okay? So let me show you what I mean by that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start from the same spot because I want to show you what you could do to save yourself a little extra work. So remember, if you look diagonally and you see a factor where you can reduce one way or the other, then this could help you. 4 and 7, there's not a factor that can go into either one of those to be reduced, but 3 and 15, yes. And you know that 3 can go into 3 one time, but 3 can go into 15 5 times. And that's going to help us out a lot. Then multiply straight across with your new numbers. 7 times 5 is 35. And 1 times 4 is 4. Now, I don't know about you, but I can mentally work 35/4 a lot easier in my head than 105/12. So now I can look at this and say, all right, I know that 4 will fit into 35 8 times, because 8 times 4 is 32, and there would be 3 left over, and the denominator stays the same. We end up with the same answer as this right here, but wasn't that a little simpler than to have to do all this extra work? Okay, so if you work smart, you can save yourself some time. But the main thing to remember when you're multiplying mixed numbers is change to improper, okay? And don't find LCMs with multiplication, all right? So here's our last example, and this is find the area. And so you see that you have a length and you have a width. Well, we know that area equals length times width. So our length is 2 1/3 times 1 1/8. Whoops, 1 1/8. Now, does it matter which one comes first? No, it doesn't. But you can just write these down and we'll multiply. Remember, we're not multiplying straight across, we're changing to a mixed number. So 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7 7/3. 1 times 8 is 8, plus 1 is 9/8. And then multiply straight across. 7 times 9 is 63. 3 times 8 is 24. Okay? So, again, we will change this back to a mixed number. All right, so I'm going to move over here. I'll have a little bit more space. 63 divided by 24. How many times will it fit in there? 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 and 2 times 2 is 4. And subtract. 13 minus 8 is 5. 5 minus 4 is 1. So here's your numerator and here's your denominator. 2 and 15/24. Can that be reduced? Can you think of a number that you could divide by? Okay, I think I can think of 3. All right, so divided by 3, 15 divided by 3 is 5, and 24 divided by 3 is 8. So bring your whole number with it. So here is your final answer. You might see this as an answer choice. However, it might be asked to simplify, and if it does, then you would need to go ahead and simplify to 2 5/8. You might even see this as one of your answer choices as well on homework or a test. All these are equivalent, but just in different forms. All right, so your final answer is 2 5/8 feet squared. The 2, remember, is for the 2 dimensions, the length and the width. All right, so hope it helps. All right, so the final answer. I'm tripping over the cord. Okay.